If you have shared a life with your wife for 4 decades and still feel unsure about exactly where or how to touch her, you are far from alone. Plenty of men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s miss the mark. It is not for lack of love or effort. Most simply were never shown what a woman's body asks for as both partners grow older. I am Dr. Isabella Marlowe, a men's intimacy educator and former clinician with more than 30 years helping couples navigate sexual health, connection, and aging. I have sat with thousands of partners who believed their best days were past until they learned what I am about to walk you through. Here is the surprising part. Newer research suggests the usual targets like the clitoris are not always the top priority for many women in later life. Just as important, there are areas many women prefer you avoid not from rejection, but because those spots can be overly sensitive, uncomfortable, or simply no longer pleasant. In this session, I will outline 3 places women over 50 often appreciate being touched, and 3 places many would rather you skip. More importantly, I will show you how to use this understanding to rebuild trust, ease, and genuine excitement in the bedroom, no matter how long it has been. Stay with me because I will also reveal the most misunderstood zone of all, the one many men assume is a guaranteed turn-on, but that a lot of women quietly dread. You will want to hear this. Before we begin, if this topic matters to you and you want straight research-based guidance on intimacy, aging, and connection, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. If this helps, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps me tailor future videos to you. All right, let us get to what you came for. Drawing on recent studies with hundreds of women in midlife and beyond, we now have a clearer map of where touch is most welcome, not only for sensation but for safety and closeness. Here are the 3 spots many women prefer, and why they grow even more important as we age together. 1. The vaginal entrance. For a great many women, particularly in later decades, the rim of the vaginal opening is among the most emotionally and physically responsive places on the body. This is not about depth or force. It is about slowing down being present and offering gentle contact at a spot that carries vulnerability and trust. In countless consultations, women have told me that when this area is approached with care, they feel recognized, safe, and genuinely desired in a way other touches do not evoke. It is both a literal and symbolic threshold where connection begins. Bodies that have lived through childbirth, menopause, or medical procedures often hold strong memory here. Sudden or insistent touch can feel intrusive. Warmth patience and attentive pacing can awaken a deep sense of intimacy. Treat it as its own destination, rather than a brief stop on the way to something else. Light circling, soft palming, or fingertip pressure, paired with eye contact, or a kind word turns a routine moment into something meaningful. Many men equate passion with speed and urgency. What many women want, especially later in life, is the kind of closeness that says, "I am here with you, and I am not rushing." It is less about tricks than about intention. When this spot is touched with patience, it feels like an invitation rather than an expectation, and everything shifts. What may surprise you next is a nearby zone most men rarely consider, yet it carries remarkable sensitivity. Understanding where it is and why it matters can change how you read your partner's body forever. 2. The zone surrounding the urethral opening. This area is almost always missed, not from indifference, but because few realize how responsive it can be. The small ring of tissue just above the vaginal entrance and below the clitoral glands is delicate and far more sensitive than many men expect. It is rarely discussed even in clinics, yet countless women describe it as a quiet source of steady, resonant pleasure. One woman in her late 60s told me that when her husband lingers there with a soft, patient touch, it feels like a gentle current that hums through her body and lingers afterward. I have heard versions of that story many times. This spot prefers a feathery approach. Pressure and friction are not the goal. In truth, less is often more. Try the lightest brush of fingertips or simply rest a warm palm nearby and let her relax into it. The skin is thin and richly innervated, so subtle contact can blend physical sensation with the feeling of being carefully attended to. For many older couples where tissues may be drier or more sensitive, slow and mindful exploration here can transform the experience. It sends a message that you are present for more than the obvious, that you are meeting all of her with attention and care. These overlooked places are often where a woman feels most cherished. There is still one more region to consider, tucked a little deeper inside, carrying meaning well beyond sensation alone. For many women, it can be profoundly pleasurable, and it is also where trust often takes root. Let us explore that next. 3. The upper front vaginal wall, often called the G-spot area. This region is not always simple to locate, but when met with patience and care, it can create a bond that is at once physical and profoundly emotional. The anterior wall, a little way inside and up toward the navel, is less about raw sensation and more about trust, especially for partners who have shared many years together. What matters here is touch that feels intentional, attentive, and safe. I think of an older couple who feared their spark had faded. She didn't enjoy deep or rapid motion. What she wanted was slow, steady pressure along that inner surface, the kind that made her feel known. She described it as a warm wave that begins quietly and expands until the whole room feels softer. This area responds best to gentle, rhythmic pressure rather than thrusting. The goal is not to chase intensity, but to cultivate presence. For many later life couples where medical history or physical limits are part of the picture, this style of contact can be especially meaningful. It communicates, I recognize your body as it is now and I'm still learning it with love. Men often ask how to know they are in the right place. Watch her breath. Notice when her muscles loosen and she leans in instead of away. The cue is often the quiet, not the noise. With that in mind, it is time to shift attention to the other side of the map. Just as some places welcome contact, others do not, and understanding where to refrain may be what earns her deepest trust. Let's look at those next. Now that we have covered the places that welcome touch and foster closeness, it is just as important to understand the boundaries. No matter how many years you have shared, there are areas that can trigger discomfort, tension, or even old emotional wounds if touched the wrong way or without a clear invitation. These are not always the spots men expect. In fact, some are commonly assumed to be fair game. The reality, especially as bodies change with age, is far more nuanced. Here are 3 places women most often prefer you avoid, and why steering clear of them can deepen trust and bring you closer. 1. The anus. Few regions are as misunderstood. Popular culture sometimes treats it like any other erogenous zone, but for many women over 50, the experience is very different. Recent surveys place it at the top of the do not touch list. The reasons go beyond physical sensitivity. They are emotional, psychological, and deeply personal. Over the years, women have told me that unexpected contact here creates anxiety rather than curiosity. Some feel shame if there was no chance to discuss it first. Others, especially those with past trauma or medical concerns, view the area as one to protect, not explore. A grandmother in her late 60s once confided, I love my husband, but I wish he would ask or notice me pull away instead of assuming I am fine. That is the unspoken truth many wish they could say without hurting a partner's pride. The rule is simple and powerful: respect. If you are unsure, Ask gently and without pressure. If she says no, accept it fully. Real intimacy is not about pushing edges. It is about honoring boundaries. When a woman feels completely safe from unwanted touch, she is far more likely to open up in ways you did not expect. That trust becomes the foundation for everything else. There is another spot that surprises many men, a place often associated with depth and connection, that for some women is exactly where things begin to shut down. Let's look at that next. Look 2. The cervix. This one surprises a lot of men. The cervix is often misunderstood and sometimes imagined as a source of deep pleasure. For many women, especially past 50, that idea misses the mark. In the same recent research, we have been discussing the cervix ranked among the most common places women prefer their partners avoid. Here is what many people overlook. The cervix is not a deeper is better target. It is a sensitive protective structure at the end of the vaginal canal. Sudden or forceful contact can feel uncomfortable, even painful. After menopause, childbirth, or gynecologic procedures, that tenderness can increase. I recall a woman in her early 70s who told me that whenever her husband reached for maximum depth, she instinctively braced not from fear but because she knew discomfort was coming and could not find the words to explain. She did not want to dent his confidence, but she wished he understood it simply did not feel good. This is where listening matters more than performance. Slower pacing, shallower depth, and frequent check-ins, even a gentle, "Does this feel okay?" can transform the experience. Many women do not need intensity, they need attentiveness. If you are in your 60s or 70s working to rebuild intimacy, learning where not to go can be as important as knowing where to touch. When you honor those limits, something bigger opens up. Emotional safety grows, trust deepens, real connection returns. The next area may be the biggest surprise of all. It is a place many men reach for automatically, yet for some women it has become too much. Understanding why can change your approach to touch for good. 3. The nipples. This one catches many people off guard. We have long been told that the nipples are reliably erotic, and for many women they can be. What rarely gets discussed, especially for women in their 50s and 60s, is how often this area becomes more tender than pleasurable. Hormonal shifts after menopause can heighten breast sensitivity. What once felt exciting may now feel overwhelming or even painful when touched abruptly. Yet plenty of men go there first assuming it is always a yes. A woman in her late 60s once confided during a quiet consultation, "I love that my partner still wants me, but when he reaches for my chest without checking in, I wish he would slow down and ask. It helps me feel like a person, not just a body. That honesty matters." The point is rarely to avoid the chest entirely, it is to change the approach. The nipples are highly reactive, and that reactivity can vary with age, medications, and mood. Some nights, a whisper-light touch is wonderful. Other nights, it is simply too much. You cannot always predict which it will be, so the key is presence. Watch her breathing. Notice tension or softness. And ask in a gentle voice, "Is this okay tonight?" That kind of attention says you are paying close care, that you remain curious and willing to learn her again and again. Intention like that deepens intimacy in a way that endures. If you are wondering how this all fits the larger picture as a man who still wants closeness, reassurance, and connection, stay with me because the next part may change how you see yourself in this season of life. A reminder for men who still want connection. If you are still here listening carefully, it tells me something important. You care not just about technique, but about closeness, about showing up for your partner in a way that still matters after many years together. If you have not heard this lately, hear it now. That matters. You matter. Wanting to stay connected, to keep learning to love with more gentleness and depth as you age is something to be proud of. Many men in their 60s, 70s, and 80s ask whether they missed their window. Bodies change, distance sometimes creeps in. What worked before may not work now, and starting again can feel uncertain. Here is what I tell them and what I want you to hold on to. It is never too late to reconnect not only with your partner, but with the part of you that still wants to give care and explore. Intimacy at this stage looks different. It is less about performance and more about presence. It is making her feel safe, seen, and valued for her whole self. Lead with that, and something beautiful happens. Defenses soften, trust returns. From that place, real closeness can grow again. Do not quit. Do not decide the story is over. Some of the most meaningful chapters in love arrive not at the start, but in the steady, quieter years that follow. As we close, there is one last idea I want to leave with you, simple but powerful. A reminder that can reshape how you touch, speak, and love from here forward. Let us finish with that thought. If there is one message to carry with you, it is that intimacy does not vanish with the years. It evolves. With that evolution comes an invitation to slow down, to learn again, and to listen with more care than ever. What matters most now is not what you once knew, but how fully present you are with the person you love today. We covered 3 places that often welcome touch as women grow older: the vaginal entrance, the small area around the urethral opening, and the upper front vaginal wall. When approached with gentleness and attention, these spots can reopen doors to closeness you may not have felt in a long time. We also looked at areas many partners prefer you avoid: the anus, the cervix, and for some, the nipples. It is not about mistrust. It is about bodies asking for something softer, slower, and more mindful. Perhaps this season is not about reigniting the past, but about building something new, a version of intimacy grounded in understanding, rather than urgency, in discovery, rather than habit. I have watched couples transform when one person truly listens and everything shifts. The change is quiet, tender, and very real. If you want closeness to return, if you hope she leans in and trusts more deeply, remember this. It begins less with your hands and more with your attention. Ask, learn, and care in a way that touches her heart as much as her body. That is the kind of touch that endures.